Hello and welcome back. We are now looking at chapter 6 in our textbook, and this chapter is important because it establishes your own credibility as a speaker, but it also helps you figure out how to analyze that audience, because quite frankly you need to know who's out there before you even start planning your speech, right? So let's jump right in to credibility. Credibility, why is it important? Credibility is who you are when no one is watching. That's also, by the way, the definition of character. But that's a side issue. We're not talking about that right now, although it does play a huge role in your ethics of your presentations. But right now we're looking at credibility. Why should the audience listen to you? This is the trustworthiness you bring to the podium. This is, where you explain your credentials and why you are the one to be trusted with this information. Because at that moment, when you're standing at the podium, you're the expert in your field. You're the one that knows everything about it. You're the one that has to share it with the world and hope it makes sense, right? So let's talk about the types of credibility. One, initial credibility. Initial credibility is when we already know that you're an expert, we've invited you to come speak maybe, you get up and everybody already knows you know about this information. Think about our class. When I get up to speak or when you open my video, you already know I'm the professor, I already have the degree in this area, I already have the experience in this area, so I have initial credibility in this field. Would I have initial credibility, say, in brain surgery? I think not. I know nothing about it. You wouldn't have any reason to believe me if I decided to give a speech on brain surgery. Okay, derived credibility is what we build up during the speech. When you start your introduction and you start talking about your topic, if you sound authoritative, if you sound like you know what you're doing, then your credibility builds with the audience. If you use powerful language, if you don't use those filler words and disfluencies that can throw people off, if you phrase things in a nice way, all of this lends to your credibility and it can rise during the course of your speech. And then there's terminal credibility. This is the one where at the end of the speech, how much credibility do you have? Did you have a moment at the end where you just blew it and your credibility was going up and then went? Think about politicians and debates. Okay, we have the initial credibility level. This is what I think they're going to do. Derived credibility, it can either go up or down depending on how they perform in the debate, and the terminal credibility. Were they good? Were they not good? Okay, these are elements of credibility and why we should believe the person speaking. Now, one of the ways that they prepare, and this can assist with credibility, is knowing who you're going to talk to. This is an audience analysis. Okay, all speeches, all communications should be audience centered. In other words, I'm aiming at a particular group of people. If I were to get up knowing that I'm going to give a presentation or a lesson or something to, say, 5-year-olds, I'm going to speak very differently than I would to you. You guys would get a little irritated if I walked in, "Hi kids, how are you? What we're going to do today is so much fun." You would just get lost, not lost, but you would just get disinterested pretty quick. And you would just give up, right? Because why bother? It's geared way towards you. Most of you, not all of you, but most of you are pretty young, right out of high school through maybe mid-30s, etc. We have a few that are a little above that, myself included, but not too much above, so I'm not going to give you a speech maybe on Medicare either. If I chose a topic about Medicare, many of you may not be interested in that. All right, so you have to know who they are. In many cases, it's a case of what do they already know about your topic. If I'm going to come into class and I'm going to give you a presentation, I have to decide what do they think, what do I think they already know about this topic? Can I expand on what they already know, or are we limited to that? If you'll notice, many courses have a basic level, a little bit more advanced or intermediate level, and expert level. That's why you're not going to take a whole bunch of beginning people and throw them into expert. They will be lost, completely lost. So you have to kind of have a basic idea of the information base that they're already, in possession of. So that's one thing you have to do with an audience analysis, is figure out what they already know. During your speech, one of your goals is to identify with the audience. So even if your people are so very different than you have to find some way to connect with them. This is where personal anecdotes come in, or personal experiences. Because if your audience can relate to something you're talking about, then you are going to connect with them on a higher level, which means they are going to be more likely to tune in and pay attention to what you're talking about. So identification with the audience. So your audience analysis so far, we're talking about keeping it audience-centered, finding out what they already know, and using that information to identify with them. Now, knowing about the audience also can influence several other things. We've got your speech style. In class, I am going to use a more formalized language. I'm not going to talk to you as if we were out at the park playing frisbee, would be using a different language style, right? It can influence tone, and whether you're using a more powerful language or less powerful language. It can influence your mode of dress. If you're walking into a group of professionals, you're not going to walk in jeans and a t-shirt. It can also influence your topic choice, which we also talked about, and the visual aids that you choose to use. Some people respond better to video, some people respond better to images, some people just want a graph up there and they don't want anything else associated with it. But you can get to know that as you get to know your audience. So let's first talk about a demographic audience analysis. The demographic analysis is not difficult. It's one of the easiest things you can do. Look at the details here. It can, when you get a good demographic analysis, you can gear your speeches towards a particular group, but you still need as much information as possible. As simple as, you've got age. Oh, where did my mouse go? There we go. Age, gender. Okay, that can play a role. Nationality or culture can play a role. Race, ethnicity, marital status. These are just basic things. Group memberships. That includes, here at the school, are you a member of any of the clubs? Are you a member of any organizations? Or outside of school, clubs, organizations, etc. Belief systems. It helps to know the belief systems, the values. What are their basic values about their beliefs? Educational levels, political beliefs, that can be a huge one in this day and age, I tell you. These are some of the basic pieces of information. Let's get a little bit more specificity going here, huh? When we're talking about age, the reason we talk about it is because we need to kind of understand the generations we're talking to. Most in a particular generation have very similar characteristics. And I'm just curious, what generation are you? I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I'm Gen X. Okay? My mom was a boomer. She's a boomer. My dad is a traditionalist. And my daughters are both millennials. Although my younger daughter is on the edge of Gen Z. So this can influence our culture and how we believe, our whole belief systems and many characteristics. Let's talk about that. This is the greatest generation, born 1901, 1924. They lived in World War II. They lived through the Great Depression. That can influence a lot. My grandmother, I swear to the day she passed, she washed her aluminum foil, the foil that you use to wrap food. She would wash it and reuse it, fold it very carefully, make sure it's very straight. She tried washing her Ziploc baggies. We convinced her not to do that quite so much, but these were just things that they were raised with, right? Now look at some of the characteristics of the greatest generation. They adhere to a lot of the rules. They don't question authority. The authority is who they are. Conformity is very important, okay? How do you feel about that? Different generational belief system. They believe in contributing to the public good, and delayed rewards is okay because as long as you're patient, when you do good things, it will come. We're very focused on family, and they were patriotic and very responsible. Responsibility was a key feature in their work life. Work ethic was amazing. If they got started at a job, they usually would stay there until they they could start at 18 and they would stay with that same company until they retired. Many, many, many moons later, okay? They had a very specific generational tendency towards all of these characteristics. Then we have the silent generation. My dad's in this one. He's similar to a traditionalist, but they do believe, but now we're starting to get more into the traditional nuclear families. Okay, previous generations, you would have entire family groups, the parents, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, etc., living all together. But in the silent generation, traditionalists, they started more of the nuclear family, mom, dad, kids, 2.5 kids and a dog, whatever. Moms were usually stay at home, but they did help shape our 20th century cultures. Rock and television and film. Oh my gosh, what kind of influence did they make on film? But they had a very strong work ethic, same as the traditionalists, but they also wanted stability and conformity, and they were very traditional. When I worked for my dad for a little while, I used different color nail polishes. I used blue, I used purple, I've known to use black. Every now and then I'll use red, pink, or natural. And when I worked for my dad, he had a real problem with the different colors because they were not normal in the corporate world and in his traditionalist belief system. So even then, that can make a difference. Then you have the boomers, what people call the boomers, the baby boomer generation. These were born as a result of World War II. They were gone off to war. They came home, and a lot of babies started getting born in the next few years. And you can see how we started getting into some anti-war, anti-government belief systems, equal rights, equal opportunities, loyalty to the children. We started focusing on personal growth and being fulfilled as a human. This is where the work-life balance started coming into play. We started questioning everything, and this was also pretty much the beginnings of the credit mentality. Spend now, worry later. They still had that excellent work ethic though. And this is my generation. I don't know why this is so small, and we are the result of, we were born right after Vietnam War, during the Cold War, and we were we had latchkey kids before that, but now there were a lot of us out there. We were latchkey kids. Moms knew where we were. Kind of. They sent us off in the morning to school, and then after school we went and played. We did our thing. We always went home and changed into play clothes, though. We had to do that. And then you go out and play. As long as you were home by the time the lights came on, you were good to go. Work-life balance, all of this stuff. Fun-seeking, vacation-oriented, highly educated. High work expectations. We were starting into the process of work smarter, not harder, and independence became a huge thing. You can read the list for yourself, okay? Quite frankly, given how we drank out of water hoses, and anybody in the neighborhood could discipline us if we got into trouble. Mrs. Smith down the road could administer a spanking. But we were Gen X, by the way. We had the best music in the 1980s. Okay, quite a few of us, by the way, down here, and I need you to see that. It says that quite a few of us are digital immigrants. That's what we're called because we didn't get into the technological age. We weren't born with it. And my first phone was in 1991, something like that. Cell phone. Before that, all our phones hung on the wall. And some of us are getting really good at it, and they call us silver surfers. I like to think I'm a silver surfer. We'll see. Gen Y, millennials. Okay, these were born average 1980 to 1984. And these are the people that are primarily in the workforce right now. They make up most of the workforce. Blended families, fastest growing generation of consumers, active socialism, and instant gratification. They became highly competitive people. They have a totally different mindset, don't they? It's willing to change jobs. Willing to change jobs if you're unhappy in the job. Much more entrepreneurial. You can look at all of this stuff. But they also, I love this, give respect for competency and not title. That's kind of a new thing. You know, a few generations back, you gave respect for title, whether they were competent or not. More self-absorbed, this list made me laugh, more self-absorbed but willing to take risks. And mistakes are learning opportunities. So that's the Gen Y. I wonder how many of you in this class are millennials. And many of you in this class are Zoomers. Now, my daughter, like I said, she's on the edge of millennial and Gen Z because she was born in 1995. So she's got elements of both generations ingrained. She's got characteristics of, okay, money driven, ambitious, politically and socially aware. I would say this generation is the most socially aware that I've seen and politically aware that I've seen. Now, is it always accurate? Unfortunately, we have a problem with, you know, how we have education is primarily technology oriented and driven, but unfortunately that same technology has made a generation that does not think as critically most of the time. We have to train it more. So that's what we're doing right here, right? We're training. We are learning how to evaluate information for clarity. And most of the Gen Z or Zoomers, that's this list that I got it from, it's the sources in the text, they call them Zoomers, I thought that was funny, are digital natives. Now I will say my daughter, born in 1995, I had that cell phone, but she certainly wasn't going to get one. I think she finally got one, and it was a very basic little Migo. It was called a Migo, and it had like 6 numbers that I could pre-program in it so she could call those people, and that was it. And she was around 8 or 9. So we didn't have smartphones back then. Gen Alpha. Okay. Some of you may actually be in here, but I don't know, not born in 2013, you wouldn't be here yet. But some sources list 2016, first fully technologically oriented generation, including in the classroom. We had a situation on campus where we had to close the campus because the internet was out and so many people couldn't access materials or their students, etc., etc. UHV had the same problem over there, and I had a discussion with my dean about it. 10 years ago, we would not have closed campus for lack of internet. It's just amazing how changed our society has become to become so technologically oriented, and it's necessary to use that technology just in day-to-day tasks. We spend a lot more time online. This generation, the AI is their reality. That's just life for them. And learning is very personalized to the individual. So that gives you an idea of basics between the generations. And let's talk about some of the generational things. So keep in mind that depending on how you are raised and the family that you were raised with, I was born and raised with a baby boomer and a traditionalist, okay? So my experience as a Gen X has some elements of baby boomer traditionalist, okay? Some of my belief systems hark back to their generation. I'm kind of a combination. It doesn't necessarily mean just because you're in this generation that you're going to take on all the characteristics of that generation. Also, you need to realize that location plays a huge role. A millennial in Athens, Greece is going to be totally different than a millennial in Austin, Texas, because of the economic structure in Greece right now, the traditionalist belief systems. There are different things going on. We have differences in all of these, though, in all of these groups, in speaking styles, in language use, especially some of that slang in Gen Z I don't get. I don't know, I heard something earlier about skibbity something or other, and I just got lost. I have no idea. And I have a niece in that. She's the one that said it. I don't know what she was talking about. But we also have differences in content and what we consider important. So when you're planning your presentations, knowing the age demographics may influence your style of dress, your style of visual aid, all of these things, how you speak. Hope that explains how that's important. Then we have, you need to know, sex or gender of your audience. Now, I say sex and gender because, as we know, that does not always correlate. We are in an age of diversity and pronoun choice, okay? We need to understand and accept that these differences exist. Now, I happen to also agree with them. It doesn't bother me at all. Do what they want to do. I'll do what I want to do. We're all happy, right? But some people don't agree. Well, you don't have to agree as long as you can accept, all right? We have to understand that gender choices exist. But we also have to know who's in our audience. If I'm getting into a room full of, say, 20-something males, am I going to walk in, most likely, and talk about, I don't know, makeup? A couple of them might be interested, but not the majority of the audience. So I would need to adapt my topic choice, okay? We also need to remember that this plays a huge role in understanding our language use. Do not use biased or gendered language. Avoid it at all costs in any group anyway. Doesn't matter. Just ethically avoid it. Now, we've talked about this before, and I need to make it clear again. Race, believe it or not, is a social construct. Even according to the U.S. Census, okay, there is a statement in the Census Bureau. Let me see if I can even find it in here in the textbook. I'm in the wrong chapter. Okay. It says, I thought I had it at hand. Okay, well, I don't have it at hand. I may have put it somewhere else in the book. But according to the U.S. Census Bureau, the concept of race is a social construct only used as a means of identification. And that's it. So it's really what we're talking about is ethnicity. So we need to understand that. But we still need to accept, whether we agree or not, that it is a social construct that we have to maintain an understanding and use in the classroom, in our speeches, etc. Never stereotype. Never, ever, ever stereotype. Not all Germans are, strict and, monoculture, monochronic. Everything must be in order and da-da-da-da. There are quite a few German artists that are just, free flow. Never stereotype. Nationality, never stereotype by that either. But these are the differences. We've got race, we've got nationality, and we've got ethnicity. These are not all the same things. Now, ethnicity, usually it's related to color of skin, etc., and hair, eyes, height, all of these things. Nationality is where you're from. So my niece, she's a beautiful, beautiful girl. Her nationality, she's Mexican American. Okay, her ethnicity is Hispanic. We don't say Mexican because she's not from Mexico. She's from here. She was born here. Now her mother, when we say nationality, she says Mexican, because she was born in Mexico. So you have to understand that these are differences that sometimes we have to understand and explain or just accept and work with in a presentation. We also need to be aware that cultural characteristics can change, values can change. What is important, we already know that there are certain Middle Eastern countries where women are not allowed to leave the home without a male escort. There are other countries where women are not allowed to leave the home without a full covering over their bodies. and that male escort. I mean, these are just things that you have to accept and know that these changes are out there. We also know that if you're talking to a group of traditionalists and you're talking about women's rights, they're going to be over here like, but my wife stayed home. Well, good for you, but not everybody does that. Okay. These are things that you need to be aware of for your audience so that you don't alienate anyone. Never alienate anyone. Group membership can also influence your belief systems. I tell you right now, if I have FFA students in my class, they are traditionally, not always, traditionally more of the country style person, but they're also really good speakers because it's drilled into them, but they're more into farms and ranching and things like that. And so they're going to have belief systems related to that. If you have people from some areas of California, okay, but vegetarians have certain belief systems, right? Vegetarians, they don't believe in eating meat. Vegans, they take it even further, nothing with even any meat byproducts. So these would influence your beliefs. You're not going to talk to a group that includes a whole bunch of vegetarians and vegans about going hunting. All right, that's just not going to do it. So group membership can influence belief systems and the peer groups that they hang out with. You need to know who these people are in your audience. Situational analysis is a little different. We're not getting into all the other aspects of the demographic analysis. You really don't need that right now, but you have an understanding of the concept. Now, situational analysis is the physical setting. Where are you going to go speak? Okay, so what is the size of the speech environment? I can tell you right now, we are going to be speaking in this course. We speak in a classroom, so you can think of the size as it's a little bit bigger classroom than some, but it's still just a classroom. How is the audio set up? These are questions that you would ask yourself before you have to go speak. If you're going to go speak at a church, or if you're going to go speak at a concert, or if you're going to go speak, you need to know how many people you're speaking to. How is the audio set up? Are you going to need a microphone? In our class, you don't need audio, okay? But I do have speakers and all that kind of stuff. What technology is available? I can tell you in our class, I have the computer with a projector. I have a document projector, so if you have small items to show, I have cameras, and I have everything that you might need. And are there cameras for recording? Many people want to record their presentations. Just so you know, you'll be recorded. Your speeches are getting recorded. Okay, and the reason it's for you, and for me, nobody's going to watch it unless you choose to, but it's helpful to know that it's there. And sometimes people want their presentations recorded so they can save it and show it to another group maybe later. Some other elements of a situational analysis, how many people are going to be in the audience? You need to know that. It makes a huge difference if you have 10 people versus 500 people. Quite frankly, I speak better to 500 than I do to 5. It's very weird. I don't know why, but you have to know your own, have an understanding of yourself there. What is the audience's disposition towards the topic? Maybe they already know what topic you're going to talk about, so you have to know what is their disposition. Think about that with like in the political arena. What if I'm going to talk to a whole bunch of people that don't believe as I do? How do I handle that? Or what is the audience disposition towards me, the speaker, right? I'm going to go speak to this group over here, and they already know what I'm going to talk about, but what do they think of me? Sometimes they're going to know something, sometimes they don't. Remember what the point of a speech is? A point of a speech is to gain a desired response, right? Whatever that response may be. And so knowing who your audience is, building your own credibility, connecting with that audience, then you have a much higher chance of achieving that goal to gain a desired response. Okay, that is all for this chapter, and I will see you again next time. Bye.